ambulance calls overnight in Gaza. This is Jabalia.
This is genocide, not war, genocide. It's an attempt to displace the people of the Gaza Strip, but this will not happen.
Tens of thousands are fleeing from north to south Gaza before the land invasion Israel threatens. But that's a long way from the 1.1 million who live here. Safad filmed this for us, she and her 3 children getting out. Unlike so many, they have a car and fuel. The World Health Organization says the forced displacement by Israel of seriously ill and injured people is, quote, a death sentence. Recognizing that, perhaps Israel said it left 2 roads open to the south. But just yesterday, Gazan officials say an Israeli strike hit a convoy of fleeing civilians, killing 70 people. The US and Qatar are attempting to open the Rafah crossing in South Gaza into Egypt. But Egypt won't accept a mass influx of refugees, and so they wait.
The Egyptian government is using this issue to try to pressure the Israelis through the Americans, if not directly, and lobbying the international community for humanitarian aid and for support in creating a humanitarian corridor.
Even if it opens, Rafah looks like an escape route only for foreign passport holders.
Every place I go and run away, and I just find bombs and I find dead people, and like maybe one day I'll end up like them, but it's a really scary thing for me.
Waiting too on the other side, trucks full of desperately needed aid, supposedly heading north for Gaza. Clinics and hospitals across the Gaza Strip now brought to the edge of being overwhelmed. We got through to the British doctor, Dr. Gassam Abu Sita, at the main Al Shifa hospital.
Unless there is respite, there is going to be an infectious diseases public health catastrophe in the hospital. The bodies are stacked up. People are too afraid to bury their dead. You drive past one of the destroyed buildings. The stench of decaying bodies is very, very, very prominent. It seems that they no longer are able to take out the bodies.
Gazan authorities say around 2,500 people killed, more than 700 of them children. At least 9,000 injured. But Gaza is not the only front. Nearly 60 people have been killed this week in the West Bank, and today Hezbollah and Israeli forces exchanged rocket and artillery fire across Israel's northern frontier with Lebanon. But it is Gaza awaiting invasion. Prime Minister Netanyahu, widely blamed by Israelis for allowing Hamas to invade, now steeling his troops for war. Are you ready for what's coming? He asked them repeatedly. With 250,000 reservists called up, Israeli tanks, artillery and infantry assemble close to the border for their latest invasion in a series since Hamas took power in Gaza 16 years ago.
Alex reporting there. We were hoping to speak to an Israeli government spokesman, but he's just had to run away from his studio position to get into an air raid shelter because of alarms. Let's go then now to Sikander Kamani, our foreign affairs correspondent who joins us live from Ashdod, just north of Israel's border with Gaza. And Sikander, you've also had alarms, apparently.
Yes, that's right. More rockets fired over today. Just around half an hour ago was the latest barrage. But we also saw Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as we saw in Alex's report there, visiting southern Israel for the first time. And he's been heavily criticized for not having met with families, for not having attended funerals. Lots of people here blame him personally, and certainly his government, for not having done more to prevent this awful massacre. And today we've also been hearing from a senior security official who admitted that the assessment that Hamas was deterred and weakened by previous bouts of clashes with the Israelis was wrong. The conventional wisdom had been that Hamas was primarily interested in improving the economic situation of people in Gaza. Instead, we know they were planning and plotting this awful attack. That same security official also said that just a few hours before the attack began last Saturday, the head of Israel's domestic intelligence service, the Shin Bet, was called in at 4 a.m. for an unscheduled briefing. But although new intelligence was coming in, it didn't warrant mobilization, he said.
And is there any more information, Sikandar, about when this offensive from land, sea and air might start?
Well, the Israeli military are not going into operational details. It does appear from what some officials have been saying that deadline for evacuation from the north of Gaza to the south of Gaza has been somewhat extended. The Israeli military saying, as you pointed out, Matt, that they've drawn up plans for this offensive from land, air and sea. Also getting more insight into what the aims of this operation might be, with officials here saying that Hamas will no longer be in power over Gaza by the end of it. What comes next? Who comes next in power? That's a big question. I mean, reoccupying the Gaza Strip would be very challenging in the long term for Israel, to say the least. The Palestinian Authority, who are in charge of the West Bank, they're already deeply unpopular.
Sikandar, thanks very much indeed. Well, with me now here is from the Charity Action Aid is Gemma Kosyals-Gulian. Thank you very much indeed. I hope I didn't mangle your name too much. Thanks for coming to our position. What are you hearing from your people inside the Gaza Strip?
Well, when we manage to have contact with them,
Yeah.
what we are hearing is that they are desperate. They don't know what to do. They say that they are dying slowly. So it's really worrying.
Dying slowly.
Yeah, that's what they are.
And have they evacuated, or are they still staying put?
4 of them, they have evacuated towards the north, but one of them is staying towards the south, and one of them is staying in the north.
And why is he or she staying in the north?
Because he has a big family, he has not the same capability to move. Means of transportation were scarcing.
Yeah.
So it's not the same for everyone. Like the most vulnerable people, they have no means. Like, for example, people with disabilities, women, pregnant women, elderly, or
there's something like 35,000 women in the Gaza Strip apparently who will give birth at some stage in the next few months. That's a big number.
Yeah.
And you're concerned about them, obviously.
Of course.
And do we know how these people are being moved? I mean, what about the hospitals? I mean, the hospitals are absolutely jam-packed with patients at the moment.
Yeah, they are.
Have you heard about their evacuation?
Yeah, one of our partners, by the way, it's one of the hospitals. It's from our partner. They have been told yesterday to evacuate the hospital. They didn't do it. Today they received another alert. They didn't evacuate. They are still treating the patients. But that's super worrying because that's violating the international law.
Right. And do you have any idea of what the reality for 2 million people pushed into the south of the Gaza Strip, eventually if they get there, what will that look like? No food, no water, no electricity?
Desperate, I would say. Yeah, desperate and panic because they don't know what to do, what will happen. They don't have water, they don't have food, they don't have anything in there. And the south, it's worth to mention that it has been already,
All right, listen, thank you very much indeed for coming. Good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Gemma Kosyals-Gulian. Joining me now from Tel Aviv is Eylon Levy, an Israeli government spokesman. Mr. Levy, thank you very much for coming on the program. I gather you just had to run to the shelter to escape another air raid.
I'm sorry, I have audio interference in my ear. I have another feed. I can't hear the question.
Okay, all right, we'll try and sort that out. I'm very sorry. Can you hear me now? 1, 2, 3, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now, Mr. Levy? Okay, all right. We'll try and get back to you later, Mr. Levy. I'm sorry about that. We'll try and sort it out. Let's go to Alex in London. Alex.
Yeah, we hope to join that one later on. Here, tens of thousands of people have been protesting across the country, demanding an end to Israel's military action in Gaza. Demonstrators chanted pro-Palestinian slogans and heard calls from world leaders to condemn what is happening in the Strip. Police issued warnings ahead of the protest that anybody showing support for Hamas would be arrested. Mia Chatterjee was at the march in central London.
If death toll measures the violence of conflict, perhaps protest measures its resonance. This is London. This is Kolkata in India. Dusseldorf in Germany. And Tel Aviv in Israel. It's hard to put an exact figure on the turnout here in London, but the chanting thundered from start to finish. The protest was organised by the group Palestine Solidarity Campaign.
Israel's told us it's now at war with the Palestinian people because of what happened last Saturday, but the reality is Israel's been waging a war against the Palestinian people for decades through a process of an enactment of a military occupation and the imposition of a system of apartheid.
Amidst the crowd, signs aplenty that this is not as cut and dry an issue as many might perceive, and even on that point, not everyone agreed.
Do you think that there is a disconnect between the complex politics of this issue and the humanitarian kind of situation on the ground, the loss of lives, the terror that people are feeling on both sides?
I reject that it's complicated. It's not Jew versus Arab. It's human rights against oppressors.
Though there was overall unity in today's messaging, there was nuance to people's motivations for coming.
And this is your daughter?
Yeah.
So it's important for you to come out and be here together?
Yeah, I think this is the minimum we can just do for the people there. We can't do any more thing.
Because I'm Irish and I can't stand what's happening to Palestine, to Palestinians right now. It's absolutely disgusting. Honestly, I'm outraged. I'm just sick of it. Just people need to see this. It's not. I brought my children here. They're learning right from wrong right now.
I come from a marginalised community myself, and so where I see oppression happening, I don't think it's fair.
We mourn the death of all civilians. It doesn't matter who they are, because we believe in the dignity of every human being, and that every human being should be able to live in freedom. Whilst a lot of the people that we've spoken to today have professed the importance of empathy for all, recent hate crime data represents a different reality. The Metropolitan Police says that in the last 2 weeks, incidents of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia have drastically increased compared to the same 2 weeks last year.
By the time the protest reached Downing Street, the police presence was greater. One protester was removed for wearing a mask and immediately released. A power is in place which requires a person to remove items which conceals their identity. And whilst the majority of protesters sent a message to the UK government, a minority at Trafalgar Square threw flares and sticks at the police. Next weekend, we understand, there are plans for an even bigger protest, by which point the death toll will be higher too.